The alley reeked of garbage and desperation. Rain hammered down on the cracked asphalt as Zara Williams knelt beside the bloodied man, her hands trembling. His face was swollen beyond recognition, one eye completely shut, his expensive suit torn and soaked crimson. Without thinking, she reached under her dress, pulled off her underwear, and pressed the fabric against the gaping wound on his shoulder. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please stay with me." The man's good eye flickered open, focusing on her face with an intensity that made her shiver despite the summer heat. He tried to speak, blood bubbling at his lips, but managed only a single word in Korean before his head lolled to the side. Sirens wailed in the distance. Zara looked down at her hands, painted red, and wondered what she'd just gotten herself into. 3 days earlier. Zara hated Mondays, but this one promised to be particularly excruciating. Her alarm hadn't gone off. Her hot water was cut again because Mrs. Chen downstairs forgot to pay the building's utility bill, and now she was running through the streets of Manhattan's Koreatown with wet hair and mismatched socks, praying her boss wouldn't notice she was late for the 3rd time this week. The Kim and Associates law firm occupied the 7th floor of a modest building on 32nd Street. Zara burst through the glass doors at exactly 9:07, earning a disapproving glare from Margaret, the receptionist who seemed to exist solely to make her life miserable. "Mr. Kim wants to see you," Margaret announced, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Immediately." Zara's stomach dropped. James Kim was a decent boss by New York standards, which meant he rarely yelled and sometimes remembered her name. But immediate meetings were never good news. She knocked on his office door, her heart hammering. "Come in, Ms. Williams." James Kim sat behind his mahogany desk, his silver-rimmed glasses perched on his nose, looking every bit the successful immigration attorney he was. But today, something was different. His usual calm demeanor had cracked, replaced by barely concealed anxiety. His hands shook slightly as he gestured for her to sit. "I need you to do something for me," he said without preamble. "Something that requires absolute discretion." Zara nodded, curiosity overriding her nervousness. "My brother is arriving from Seoul tonight. He'll need someone to meet him at JFK, bring him to a safe location, and stay with him until I can arrange proper security." James paused, choosing his words carefully. "Daniel has been involved in some complicated business dealings back home. There are people who might want to harm him." "Your brother." Zara had worked for James for 2 years and never knew he had a brother. "Half-brother technically, different mothers. We're not close, but family is family." His expression hardened. "He's staying at the Peninsula Hotel under the name David Lee. Pick him up at Terminal 1 at 11 p.m. Flight KE082 from Seoul. Don't tell anyone about this, not even Margaret." The way he emphasized those last words sent a chill down her spine. "Mr. Kim, I'm just a paralegal. Shouldn't you hire actual security?" "That's exactly why I'm asking you. No one knows about you. You're not in the system, not connected to our family. You're invisible, Ms. Williams, and right now, that's the most valuable thing anyone could be." The comment stung, but he wasn't wrong. Zara had spent her whole life being invisible, the scholarship kid at Columbia, the only black woman in most rooms she entered, the girl whose parents had sacrificed everything so she could have opportunities they never had. Invisibility was her superpower and her curse. "I'll pay you $5,000 for one night's work," James added. "Cash." $5,000 would cover 3 months of rent, her mother's medication, and maybe, finally, that trip to visit her grandmother in Virginia. Zara heard herself saying yes before her brain could catch up. That night, she stood in JFK's International Arrivals Terminal, holding a sign that read David Lee and feeling ridiculous. The Peninsula Hotel was one of Manhattan's most expensive, and here she was in her Target dress and discount sneakers, about to escort some businessman to luxury she could never afford. The passengers from Seoul began trickling out. Families reuniting with tears and laughter, businessmen in sharp suits barking into phones, students with overstuffed backpacks. But no one approached her. An hour passed, then 2. Zara checked her phone obsessively, but James hadn't responded to any of her texts. The terminal grew quiet as the crowd dispersed. Something was wrong. She was about to leave when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Don't go to the hotel. He never made it off the plane. Check St. Vincent's Hospital. Hurry. The text disappeared before she could screenshot it. Zara's hands went cold. She ran for a taxi, her mind racing through possibilities, each worse than the last. At St. Vincent's emergency room, she pushed through the chaos of crying children and exhausted nurses until she reached the intake desk. I'm looking for someone who came in tonight, possibly from JFK, David Lee, or Daniel Kim. The nurse barely looked up. No one by those names. Korean male, probably injured. Lady, we've had 24 Korean patients today. You need to be more specific or have actual family member authorization. Zara felt panic rising in her throat. She was about to turn away when she saw him, or rather, saw the 3 men in expensive suits standing guard outside a private room at the end of the hall. They had that distinctive stillness of people trained to hurt others. She approached casually, pretending to study her phone, and caught a glimpse through the doorway. A man lay in the hospital bed, his face bruised but aristocratic, IVs snaking into both arms. Even unconscious, he radiated an authority that made her instinctively step back. You lost. One of the guards materialized beside her, his English heavily accented but his message clear. I'm with Kim and Associates. James Kim sent me. The guard's expression shifted instantly from hostile to confused. He spoke rapidly in Korean to his companions, then turned back to her. You're the lawyer. Paralegal, Zara corrected, though she sensed accuracy wasn't the priority here. The guards exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally, the first guard nodded. Come back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bring documents proving you work for James Kim. He pressed something into her hand, a business card with nothing but a phone number. You call this number only. No police. You understand? No police. Zara nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. As she walked away, she glanced back one more time. The man in the bed had opened his eyes, and even from that distance. His gaze locked onto hers with an intensity that made her forget to breathe. She didn't sleep that night. Instead, she researched everything she could find about Daniel Kim. There was nothing. No social media, no business records, no digital footprint at all. It was as if he didn't exist, and in Zara's experience, people who didn't exist digitally were either running from something or running toward something worse. At 3 a.m., her apartment door buzzed. Through the peephole, she saw 2 men in dark suits. Not the same ones from the hospital, but cut from the same cloth, expensive, dangerous patient. She didn't open the door. They didn't knock again, but she heard them outside for hours, their presence a silent threat. When dawn finally broke and she dared to check again, they were gone, replaced by a manila envelope propped against her doorframe. Inside were 50 $100 bills, a first-class ticket to Seoul dated for 2 days from now, and a photograph. The photo showed her walking home from work yesterday, taken from across the street. Someone had been watching her long before she agreed to any of this. Beneath the photo was a handwritten note in elegant script. You've already chosen a side. See this through and your family stays safe. Run, and everyone you love pays the price. Zara's hands shook as she stared at those words. This wasn't about James Kim's brother anymore. This was something much bigger, much darker, and she was trapped right in the center of it. Her phone rang, the same unknown number from the hospital. Ms. Williams, we need to talk about your future. The voice was male, American, and carried the casual confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Who are you? Someone who can help you survive what comes next. Daniel Kim isn't just a businessman, and those men at the hospital aren't just security. You walked into a war that's been brewing for 20 years, and now both sides think you matter. He paused. Do you know why? No. Because Daniel Kim woke up this morning and said your name. Just yours. Now everyone wants to know who you are and why the crown prince of the Soul Syndicate trusts a paralegal from Harlem more than his own blood. The line went dead. Zara counted the words in her head as she paced her tiny apartment. Crown Prince, Soul Syndicate, war. None of this made sense, but the $5,000 James had offered suddenly seemed like blood money, and the $50,000 in the envelope felt like a down payment on her soul. She called James Kim 17 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. His office number rang endlessly, not even Margaret's chipper voice to break the monotony. By noon, Zara made a decision that would either save her life or end it. She went back to the hospital. The guards were different this time. Younger, sharper, with eyes that tracked her every movement like predators sizing up prey. But they let her through without a word, as if they'd been expecting her. Daniel Kim was sitting up in bed, the bruises on his face already fatting to yellow-green. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe early 30s, with the kind of bone structure that made sculptors weep. But it was his eyes that captured her, dark, intelligent, and carrying the weight of someone who'd seen too much and forgotten nothing. "Zara Williams," he said in perfect English, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. "The woman who saved my life with her underwear. That's a first, even for me." Heat flooded her cheeks. "I had to stop the bleeding." "I know," he gestured to the chair beside his bed. "Sit, we need to talk, and I suspect you have many questions. Starting with who the hell you really are, and why people are threatening my family." A ghost of a smile crossed his lips. "Direct, I appreciate that. My brother failed to mention you had a spine." He shifted, wincing slightly. "I'm exactly who James told you, his half-brother. What he didn't tell you is that our father built an empire in Seoul that makes your American mafia look like street gangs playing dress-up." "Drugs," Zara heard herself ask. "Among other things, real estate, shipping, politicians, judges, anything that can be bought my father owns. I was supposed to inherit everything when he died 3 years ago." His expression hardened. "But my uncle had other plans." "Let me guess, he tried to kill you." "He succeeded in killing my wife and daughter." The words came out flat, emotionless, but Zara saw his hands clench the bedsheets. "I've spent 3 years hunting him across Asia. He fled to New York 2 months ago, built alliances with the Russian Bratva and the Triads. Now he controls half of Manhattan's underworld, and I've come to take it all back." Zara stood up. "I'm a paralegal. I file paperwork and make coffee. Whatever war you're fighting, I can't." "You already are." Daniel's voice cut through her protest. "The moment you touched me in that alley, the moment you used your own clothing to save a stranger, you marked yourself. My uncle's people saw you. They took photos. By now, they know your name, where you live, where your mother works at Mount Sinai Hospital." The blood drained from Zara's face. "My mother is safe. I have 12 men watching her right now. Your grandmother in Virginia has 4. Your college roommate in Boston has 2. He leaned forward. "I protect what's mine, Ms. Williams, and whether you like it or not, you're mine now." "I'm not anyone's property." "No," he agreed. "You're my liability, which is much worse. My uncle will try to use you against me. The FBI will try to flip you as an informant. The Triads will try to torture information out of you. Your only chance of survival is staying close to me until this ends." "And how does it end?" "With my uncle dead or me in the ground. There's no middle path in this life." Zara wanted to run, to grab her mother and disappear into some small town where Korean mob bosses and syndicate wars were just things that happened in movies. But she'd grown up in Harlem, watched her father get shot over a $50 drug debt when she was 9. She recognized the look in Daniel's eyes, the look of a man who'd already died inside and was just waiting for his body to catch up. "What do you need from me?" "Right now, just be visible. Let my uncle's people see you with me. Make them think you're important." He paused. "Tomorrow night, there's a charity gala at the plaza. Manhattan's elite laundering guilt through $1,000 plates and champagne. My uncle will be there, hiding behind his American alias, David Chen, real estate developer. I need you on my arm." "I don't have anything to wear to the plaza." "You do now." He nodded to the corner where a garment bag hung. Valentino, your size, non-negotiable. How did you know my size? Daniel's smile didn't reach his eyes. I know everything about you, Zara. Your undergraduate thesis on systemic racism in immigration law. Your mother's breast cancer diagnosis last year. The fact that you cry every Sunday night because you're afraid you'll never be more than invisible. He let that sink in. I see you. That's why you're still alive. The words should have terrified her, but instead, they ignited something dangerous in her chest. The reckless hunger of someone who'd spent their whole life in the shadows, finally stepping into the light, even if that light burned. One condition, she said. You tell me everything, no more secrets. If I'm risking my life, I deserve to know why. Fair enough. Daniel reached for a folder on the nightstand, then stopped, his expression shifting. Get down. Zara barely had time to process the command before Daniel lunged from the bed, tackling her to the floor. The window exploded inward, glass raining down like deadly snow. 3 bullets punched through the wall where her head had been seconds ago. The guards burst in, weapons drawn, but Daniel was already moving. Despite his injuries, he grabbed Zara and dragged her toward the bathroom, his body shielding hers. More shots, screaming from the hallway, the sharp staccato of return fire. They huddled in the bathtub, Daniel's arms locked around her, his breath hot against her ear. Stay down, don't move until I say. Zara's heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst through her ribs. She could feel Daniel's pulse racing against her back, smell the antiseptic from his wounds mixed with expensive cologne. For 30 seconds that felt like 30 years, the world was nothing but gunfire and chaos. Then silence. Daniel's second-in-command, a man named Park, appeared in the doorway. His face was splattered with blood, none of it his own. Building's clear, 3 shooters all down, but we need to move now. Police are 3 minutes out. Daniel helped Zara to her feet, checking her for injuries with clinical efficiency. You hurt. She shook her head, not trusting her voice. Good, we're leaving. Park, bring the car around to the loading dock. Contact Jinsu and tell him to prepare the safe house in Queens. Full security protocol. They moved through the hospital like ghosts, taking service elevators and back hallways that Daniel seemed to know by heart. Zara caught glimpses of the aftermath, guards standing over bodies, nurses being ushered away by men in suits, security footage being erased in real time. This wasn't just money and influence. This was power at a level she'd never imagined. The black SUV was waiting exactly where Park had promised. Daniel pushed Zara into the back seat and climbed in after her, his phone already at his ear, rapid-fire Korean filling the space. They peeled out of the loading dock just as the first police sirens rounded the corner. Zara stared at her hands. They were shaking. Your uncle. Almost certainly. He's making his move faster than I anticipated. Daniel's jaw clenched. He knows I'm weak right now, still recovering. He's trying to end this before I can rebuild my forces here. How many people have to die before this is over? As many as it takes. He turned to face her, and in the flickering streetlights, his expression was terrifying in its emptiness. I warned you, Zara. This is what my world looks like. Blood and bullets and bodies. Last chance to walk away. She thought about her mother, working double shifts to pay off medical debt. Her grandmother, alone in Virginia with nothing but memories and arthritis. The endless parade of invisibility that had defined her entire existence. Then she thought about the way Daniel had thrown himself between her and those bullets without hesitation, protecting her like she mattered, like she was worth dying for. I'm not walking anywhere, she said, surprised by the steel in her own voice. So tell me, what's really happening tomorrow night at the plaza? Daniel studied her for a long moment, then smiled. A real smile this time, dangerous and beautiful. We're going to start a war, Ms. Williams, and you're going to be the match that lights the fuse. The safe house in Queens was a 3-story brownstone that looked like every other building on the block. Precisely the point, Zara realized. Peeling paint, overgrown garden, a broken doorbell that probably hadn't worked in years. But the moment they stepped inside, the illusion shattered. Steel-reinforced doors, security cameras in every corner, bulletproof windows disguised as regular glass. The basement had been converted into an armory that would make a small military jealous. "Home sweet home," Daniel muttered, leading her upstairs to what appeared to be a master bedroom. "You'll stay here tonight. My room is across the hall. Park and his team will rotate shifts downstairs. Don't open the door for anyone except me, and if you hear gunfire, there's a panic room behind the bookshelf. Push the 3rd volume of War and Peace." "Of course it's War and Peace," Zara said, her laugh edged with hysteria. "Because this whole situation isn't ironic enough." Daniel paused at the doorway, his expression softening. "You're handling this better than most people would, better than I did my first time." "How old were you when you found out about your family's business?" 7. My father took me to watch him execute a man who'd stolen from him, wanted me to understand the cost of betrayal early." His voice was distant, remembering. "I threw up all over my shoes. My father beat me for showing weakness. My mother held me while I cried and told me I'd have to be stronger than my fear if I wanted to survive. She was dead 6 months later. Car accident, they said, but I knew better even then." Zara moved toward him without thinking, her hand reaching for his. "I'm sorry." He looked down at their joined hands with something like wonder. "Don't be sorry for me, Zara. I became exactly what my father wanted, a monster dressed in expensive suits. The only difference is I choose my victims more carefully." He squeezed her hand once, then released it. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be complicated." But sleep was impossible. Zara lay in the unfamiliar bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled conversations in Korean drifting up from downstairs. At 2 a.m., she gave up and crept to the window, looking out at the quiet street below. A homeless man shuffled past, pushing a shopping cart. A cat darted between cars. Everything looked so normal, so mundane. How many people in this neighborhood had any idea that a Korean mob war was being orchestrated 3 floors above their heads? "Can't sleep either," Daniel's voice made her jump. He stood in the doorway wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, looking younger and somehow more dangerous without the suits and polish. The bandages on his shoulder were fresh. "Every time I close my eyes, I see those bullets, see the window exploding." Zara wrapped her arms around herself. "I keep thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't moved when you did. Then my uncle would have won and you'd be dead. Neither of those things are acceptable to me." He moved to stand beside her at the window. "You asked me to tell you everything. Are you sure you want that burden?" "I'm already carrying it. Might as well know what I'm holding." Daniel was quiet for a moment, weighing his words. "My father, Kim Young-ho, built his empire in post-war Seoul. Started as a street enforcer, worked his way up through blood and brutality until he controlled everything from Gangnam to Itaewon. He married my mother for love, his only weakness, everyone said. She was a professor's daughter, educated, refined, everything the underworld wasn't. She tried to civilize him, and for a while it worked. He went legitimate, or appeared to. Bought hotels, restaurants, construction companies, became respectable. But the empire remained, Zara guessed. Always, you can't wash that much blood off your hands with money alone. My uncle Kim Yi-sung was my father's enforcer, his right hand. While my father played businessman, Yi-sung handled the dirty work. Then my mother died and my father married again, a woman from a rival family, a political alliance. She gave him James, the legitimate heir who could walk in both worlds. American education, law degree, clean record. Everything I could never be. That's why James doesn't acknowledge you publicly. He's protecting himself and his practice. I don't blame him. He didn't choose this life, I did. Daniel's jaw tightened. When my father died, he left everything to me, not James. Yi-sung felt betrayed. He'd spent 40 years in my father's shadow, doing the brutal work, getting none of the glory. He thought the empire should be his, so he made his move. Your wife and daughter. Min Seo and Hana, 3 years old, barely old enough to say full sentences. She loved strawberries and hated bedtime. His voice cracked almost imperceptibly. Yi-sung had them killed in front of me, made me watch, then left me alive as a message. He wanted me broken, wanted me to know that he'd taken everything that mattered. Then he took my father's empire, piece by piece, turning my own people against me. Those who stayed loyal died. I spent 18 months rebuilding from nothing, calling in every favor, every debt. Then I hunted him across Asia for another 18 months. But he came here. New York has always been neutral territory, split between a dozen factions who barely tolerate each other. Yi Sung saw an opportunity. He's been buying loyalty, forming alliances, building a new empire on American soil. But he made one critical mistake. What's that? Daniel turned to face her fully. He underestimated how far I'd go to destroy him. I didn't come here to reclaim my father's empire, Zara. I came here to burn it all down, him included. Everything my father built, everything Yi Sung stole, I'm going to turn it to ash. And tomorrow night at the plaza, we start the fire. How? The gala is hosted by the Korean American Business Association. Every major player will be there. Triads, Russians, Yakuza, even some FBI pretending to be donors. It's neutral ground where no blood can be spilled without consequences. Yi Sung will be there as David Chen, playing the respectable businessman. He thinks he's safe. Daniel's smile was razor-sharp. But I'm going to introduce you as my fiancée, the woman I'm planning to marry, the future mother of my children. I'm going to make him think you're my new weakness. Ice flooded Zara's veins. You're using me as bait. I'm using you as a declaration of war. Yi Sung will see you and think he can hurt me again by taking you. He'll make a move, break the neutral ground rules, and every alliance he's built will crumble. The Triads won't work with someone who can't control himself. The Russians respect strength, not desperation. By tomorrow night, he'll be isolated and vulnerable. Daniel's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. But I won't let him touch you, Zara. I swear on my daughter's memory, I will protect you with everything I have. And what happens after, when your uncle is dead and the war is over? I don't know, he admitted. I haven't thought past revenge in 3 years. That's all I've been living for, the chance to watch him die. Beyond that is just darkness. Zara should have been terrified, should have demanded he take her to the police, witness protection, anywhere but here. But standing in this room with a man who'd been hollowed out by grief and rebuilt himself into a weapon, she felt something else entirely. Recognition. She saw herself in him, the invisible girl who'd spent her whole life being overlooked, now standing at the center of something that mattered, something dangerous and real and alive. Then maybe it's time you started living for something else, she said quietly. Daniel's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering behind his eyes. Like what? I don't know yet, but we have until tomorrow night to figure it out. He leaned in slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, and pressed his forehead against hers. They stood like that, breathing the same air, existing in a moment stolen from the chaos surrounding them. Zara felt tears sliding down her cheeks, though she couldn't have said why. Grief for the child he'd lost, fear for what was coming, or maybe just the overwhelming weight of finally being seen by someone who understood what it meant to be invisible. I need to tell you something, Daniel whispered. Something I haven't told anyone. The night Yi Sung killed my family, I was supposed to be home, had a meeting that ran late. I chose business over dinner with my daughter. I chose the empire over the only thing that actually mattered. That's why I can't stop, why I have to see this through. Because if I don't, if I let him win, then their deaths mean nothing. My choices destroyed them, and all I have left is making sure those choices count for something. That's survivor's guilt talking. That's truth talking, he interrupted. I was a terrible father, Zara. Absent, distracted, always chasing power and respect and control. Min Seo begged me to stay home more, to put Hana to bed, to be present. I promised I would after this deal, after that meeting, always after. Then there was no after anymore. Just blood and regret and this hollow thing I've become. Zara pulled back enough to meet his eyes. You're not hollow. Hollow things don't protect strangers in alleys. Hollow things don't risk everything to keep random paralegals safe. You're hurt and angry and broken, but you're not hollow. You barely know me. I know you threw yourself in front of bullets for me. I know you've had men watching my mother to keep her safe. I know you're telling me the truth right now when lying would be easier. She managed a small smile. That's more than most people have known my whole life. Daniel studied her face like he was memorizing it, committing every detail to memory. If things go wrong tomorrow, they won't. But if they do, he continued, Park has instructions to get you out of the country. New identity, new life, money to start over. Promise me you'll go. Promise me you won't try to be a hero. Only if you promise me the same thing. I'm not a hero, Zara. I stopped being one the day I chose revenge over healing. Then maybe tomorrow, we both start choosing differently. He kissed her then, soft and desperate, like a drowning man gasping for air. Zara kissed him back, tasting salt and sorrow and something that might have been hope if either of them dared to name it. When they finally broke apart, dawn was painting the sky pink and gold, beautiful and terrible in its promise of what was coming. I should let you rest, Daniel said, though he didn't move toward the door. Stay, Zara heard herself say. Just until the sun comes up. I don't want to be alone right now. So they lay together on top of the covers, fully clothed, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat steady and strong. Neither of them slept. They just existed together in the growing light, two broken people holding each other against the darkness they both knew was coming. Outside, the city woke up, oblivious to the war about to erupt in its heart. Tomorrow night at the plaza, everything would change. But for now, for these stolen hours, they had peace. And sometimes, peace was enough. The Valentino dress fit like it had been designed specifically for Zara's body. Midnight blue silk that hugged every curve and fell to the floor in a waterfall of fabric. The stylist Daniel had sent arrived at noon with a team of 3, transforming her from a paralegal into something that belonged on red carpets. Hair swept up to expose her neck, makeup that made her eyes look twice their size, jewelry that probably cost more than her yearly salary. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. You look like a queen, Park said from the doorway, his usual stoic expression cracking into something almost like approval. Boss is going to lose his mind when he sees you. That's the point, isn't it? Make me look valuable so his uncle takes the bait. Zara turned, the dress swirling around her ankles. I'm the worm on the hook. You're much more than that, Ms. Williams. Boss doesn't look at anyone the way he looks at you. Not since. Park stopped himself, but Zara understood. Not since his wife. Just be careful tonight. Keep your eyes open, trust no one except Boss and me, and if anything feels wrong, you say the word strawberry and we extract you immediately. Strawberry, got it. The code word twisted something in her chest, knowing Daniel had chosen his daughter's favorite fruit as the signal for danger. Even in this, Hannah's ghost lingered. Daniel emerged from his room wearing a black tuxedo that probably cost more than a decent used car, his hair slicked back, the bruises on his face carefully covered with makeup. He looked devastating and dangerous, every inch the crown prince he'd been born to be. When his eyes landed on Zara, he stopped mid-step, his expression unguarded for just a moment. You're going to start a riot looking like that, he said quietly, offering his arm. Ready to meet the devil. As ready as I'll ever be. The Plaza Hotel blazed with light, a beacon of old money and new corruption. Limousines and town cars lined Fifth Avenue, disgorging Manhattan's elite in their designer armor. Zara spotted faces she recognized from the news, politicians, celebrities, business moguls, all rubbing shoulders with people whose wealth came from darker sources. The security was thick but subtle, men in tuxedos with telltale bulges under their jackets, watching everything with predator eyes. Daniel kept her close as they entered the grand ballroom, his hand on the small of her back, projecting ownership and protection in equal measure. Heads turned. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Zara felt the weight of 100 stares, some curious, some calculating, some openly hostile. She lifted her chin and smiled, channeling every ounce of confidence she'd learned growing up in neighborhoods where showing fear meant becoming a victim. David Chen, 3 o'clock, Park murmured in Daniel's ear. With the Russians. Zara followed Daniel's gaze to a cluster of men near the bar. The man in the center was in his 60s, silver-haired and distinguished-looking, laughing at something a blonde woman had said. He looked like someone's grandfather, not a monster who'd murdered children. But when his eyes swept the room and landed on Daniel, his expression went cold and calculating. This was Kim Yi-sung, the uncle who destroyed everything Daniel loved. Showtime, Daniel whispered, his hand tightening on Zara's waist. He steered them directly toward the bar, making no attempt at subtlety. Park and 3 other guards flanked them, a clear statement of intent. Yi-sung watched them approach with the stillness of a cobra deciding whether to strike. The Russians beside him shifted, hands moving toward concealed weapons, but Yi Sung raised a hand, stopping them. The blonde woman melted away, recognizing danger when she saw it. "Nephew," Yi Sung said in Korean, his voice carrying the warmth of a funeral dirge. "How unexpected to see you here. I heard you were recovering from an unfortunate accident." "Accident," Daniel replied in English, making sure everyone around could understand. "Is that what you're calling attempted murder now, Uncle? I suppose it sounds better at charity galas." "I have no idea what you're talking about, though I am sorry to hear someone tried to harm you. New York can be so dangerous for outsiders who don't understand the local customs." His eyes slid to Zara, assessing and dismissing her in the same glance. "And who is your companion? She seems young for your usual tastes." "Zara Williams, my fiancée." Daniel pulled her closer, his voice dropping into something possessive and proud. "We're to be married next month in Seoul. I wanted her to meet my family before the ceremony." Zara felt Yi Sung's attention sharpen, his casual dismissal transforming into keen interest. She forced herself to meet his eyes, to smile like she didn't understand the danger standing 3 feet away. "Fiancé," Yi Sung repeated, switching to English. "How romantic, and so sudden. One might almost think you're trying to send a message, Daniel." "The only message I'm sending is that I'm done hiding. I'm back, I'm rebuilding, and I'm taking back everything you stole." Daniel's smile was a blade wrapped in silk. "Starting with this city." The temperature in their corner of the room plummeted. The Russian nearest to Yi Sung, a man built like a tank with prison tattoos creeping up his neck, leaned in and whispered something urgent. Yi Sung's jaw clenched, his mask of civility cracking. "You're making threats at a charity event. Have you lost your mind along with your family?" Daniel moved so fast Zara barely saw it. One moment he was beside her, the next he had Yi Sung by the throat, slamming him against the bar hard enough to rattle glasses. Guards on both sides drew weapons, the entire ballroom erupting into chaos. Women screamed, men dove for cover, but Daniel didn't flinch. "Say their names," Daniel hissed in Korean, his voice carrying enough violence to make Zara's blood run cold. "Say my wife's name, my daughter's name. I want to hear you acknowledge what you took from me before I rip your throat out." "Daniel," Park grabbed his shoulder. "Not here, not like this." FBI agents were pushing through the crowd, along with NYPD and hotel security. In seconds, they'd all be arrested or worse. But Daniel didn't move, his hand still locked around Yi Sung's throat, murder blazing in his eyes. Zara did the only thing she could think of. She stepped forward and placed her hand over Daniel's. "Strawberry," she whispered. "Daniel, strawberry." The code word cut through his rage like a knife. Daniel blinked, awareness flooding back into his eyes. He released Yi Sung, who collapsed against the bar, gasping and clutching his throat. The FBI agents were seconds away now, shouting commands, pushing through the panicked crowd. "We need to move," Park urged, already plotting their exit route with his eyes. But Yi Sung was laughing, a wet, rattling sound. "You stupid boy, you just gave me everything I needed. Everyone here saw you attack me unprovoked. The FBI, the Russians, the triads, they all watched you lose control like a rabid dog. Who's going to work with someone that unstable? Who's going to trust you now?" Daniel's expression shifted as he realized the trap he'd walked into. This had been Yi Sung's plan all along: provoke Daniel into public violence, destroy his credibility, isolate him completely. And Zara had been the perfect bait to make it work. "You used her to get to me," Daniel said slowly, understanding dawning. "The hospital shooting, the threats, you knew I'd bring her here. You knew I'd lose control if you mentioned them." "Of course, you're so predictable, nephew, so emotional. That's why you'll never win. That's why I'll always be 10 steps ahead." Yi Sung straightened his tie, his composure returning even as bruises bloomed on his throat. "By tomorrow, every organization in this city will know you're unstable. They'll come to me for stability, for leadership. And your little paralegal girlfriend, well, she'll make excellent leverage once you're isolated and desperate." The FBI agents broke through the crowd, hands on their weapons. "Nobody move, hands where we can see them." Park made a decision. He grabbed Zara's arm and pulled her toward the kitchen entrance while his team created a barrier between them and the approaching agents. Daniel followed, his face a mask of controlled fury. They burst through the kitchen, past startled chefs and waiters, heading for a service exit Park had scouted earlier. But the exit was blocked. 6 men in dark suits stood waiting, and Zara recognized their leader, the American who'd called her about Daniel being the crown prince. He held up a badge, FBI. Daniel Kim, Zara Williams, you're both under arrest for assault, conspiracy, and about a dozen other charges we'll figure out later. He smiled without warmth. You're done playing gangster in my city. Park reached for his weapon, but 20 laser sights painted his chest. They were surrounded, outgunned, trapped. Zara felt her entire world collapsing, the weight of every terrible decision that had led to this moment crushing her lungs. Then Daniel laughed. It wasn't the laugh of a defeated man. It was the laugh of someone who just realized they'd been playing the wrong game entirely. You think Yi Sung is going to let you arrest us? Daniel asked the FBI agent. You think he wants us alive to testify, to reveal his operations, to name names? He pulled out his phone, showing the screen to the agent. In the last 3 minutes, while you were chasing us through this kitchen, Yi Sung's men have planted evidence at your field office implicating you in his smuggling operations. Photos of you accepting bribes, bank records showing deposits from shell companies he controls. Whether you arrest us or not, your career is over. He's cleaning house, starting with loose ends like you. The agent's face went white as he checked his own phone, reading messages that confirmed Daniel's words. You're lying. Call your supervisor. Ask him why Internal Affairs is tearing apart your desk right now. Daniel's smile was vicious. Welcome to my world, Agent Morrison, where everyone's a pawn and nobody's safe. The question is, do you want to go down with Yi Sung, or do you want to help me bury him? Morrison's hand shook on his weapon. Behind him, his team exchanged uncertain glances. The laser sights wavered. What are you offering? Everything. Names, operations, bank accounts, shipping routes. I'll give you the entire Korean organized crime network in North America. But we do it my way, on my timeline, and you keep Zara Williams out of it completely. She's a civilian who got caught in the crossfire. She walks away clean. And you. I'm already dead, have been for 3 years. I'm just finishing what I started before I go. Daniel reached for Zara's hand, squeezing once. Do we have a deal? Morrison looked at Zara, then at Daniel, then at his phone where his career was being systematically destroyed by a man he'd underestimated. We have a deal, but if you're lying to me, then you can kill me yourself. I'll even provide the gun. Sirens wailed outside, getting closer. Morrison made a decision, lowering his weapon and signaling his team to do the same. We extract now, debrief at a secure location. Move. They ran through the plaza's underground passages, a strange alliance of gangsters and federal agents united by desperation and the enemy of their enemy. Zara's mind spun with implications, trying to understand what had just happened. Daniel had sacrificed himself, had offered to burn down his father's entire legacy to save her. They emerged into the basement parking garage where 3 black SUVs waited. Morrison's team loaded them in, Park arguing in rapid Korean with Daniel about the wisdom of trusting the FBI. Zara sat between them, her beautiful dress torn and dirty, her carefully styled hair coming loose, her entire world reshaping itself in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. As they pulled out onto Fifth Avenue, Zara looked back at the plaza. Through the windows, she could see the chaos still unfolding, security trying to restore order, guests fleeing into the night. And standing at the entrance, watching their SUV disappear into traffic, was Yi Sung. Even from that distance, Zara could feel his eyes on her, his smile promising that this wasn't over. Not even close. Daniel's phone buzzed. He read the message, his expression going carefully blank. Then he turned to Zara, and she saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before, genuine fear. What? She demanded. What is it? James, Daniel said quietly. He's been taken. Yi Sung has my brother. The SUV swerved around a corner, heading toward whatever safe house Morrison had prepared. Zara felt the trap closing around them, felt the walls shrinking in. Yi-sung had played them all, had anticipated every move, and now he had the one thing that could destroy Daniel more completely than any army, his family. "We're going to get him back," Zara said, though she had no idea how. Daniel stared out the window at the city lights blurring past, his reflection ghostly in the glass. He's probably already dead. That's what Yi-sung does. He takes everything you love and turns it to ash. I should have expected this. Should have protected James better. So what do we do? Daniel turned to face her, and in his eyes, she saw the monster he'd been trained to be finally emerging from the man he'd tried to become. "We stop playing defense. We stop reacting. Tomorrow morning, we hit every one of Yi-sung's operations simultaneously. We burn his empire to the ground, and we make him watch. Then, when he has nothing left, when he's desperate and alone and broken," his voice dropped to a whisper that made Zara's skin crawl. "Then I'm going to do to him what he did to my family, and I'm going to make sure he knows exactly why he's dying." Morrison, who'd been listening from the front seat, turned around. "That's not how this works. We have a deal." "The deal was to give you information. I never promised to do it peacefully." Daniel's smile was emptiness given form. "You want to stop me, arrest me, but then you'll never get James back, you'll never take down Yi-sung, and you'll spend the rest of your very short career wondering if you made the right choice." They drove through the night in silence, each person lost in their own calculations. Zara held Daniel's hand, feeling the tremors running through him, the barely controlled violence of a man who'd finally reached his breaking point. She'd wanted to be seen, wanted to matter, wanted to step out of invisibility into something real and alive. Well, she'd got her wish. And now she was going to have to live with the consequences, or die trying. The SUV pulled into an abandoned warehouse in Red Hook, Brooklyn. As they climbed out, Zara's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She opened it, then felt her blood turn to ice. It was a photo of James Kim, bound to a chair, beaten and bloodied. Behind him stood Yi-sung, smiling at the camera. The message beneath read, "Tomorrow at dawn, Pier 47. Come alone or he dies screaming. And bring the girl, I think it's time we got properly acquainted." Zara showed Daniel the phone. He stared at it for a long moment, something fundamental shifting behind his eyes. When he looked up at her, she saw that the man she'd been falling for had disappeared entirely, replaced by the crown prince of the Soul Syndicate, the monster his father had created. The weapon 3 years of grief had sharpened to a killing edge. "So be it," Daniel said softly. "If he wants a war, we'll give him a war, and when the sun rises tomorrow, one of us will be dead." He pulled Zara close, kissing her forehead like a benediction or a goodbye. "Last chance to run, Zara Williams. After tonight, there's no going back. You'll be part of this world forever, marked by blood and violence and choices you can't unmake. Tell me now, are you in or are you out?" Zara thought about her mother, her grandmother, her neat little life of invisibility and safety. She thought about the woman she'd been 4 days ago, filing paperwork and dreaming of a future that looked exactly like her present. That woman was gone, burned away in the fire of bullets and betrayal, and a broken man's desperate attempt to find redemption through revenge. "I'm in," she said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. "Let's finish this." Daniel's smile was beautiful and terrible, and promised nothing but blood. "Then, let's give my uncle exactly what he's been asking for." Dawn was 6 hours away. And when the sun rose over New York City, the streets were going to run red. To be continued.